In 2016, I quit my job and traveled the world for 2 years as a digital nomad. And a lot of people ask, was it safe? Was it scary? What was it like? Was it lonely? And you might be wondering also why I'm talking about this now, because this is very different from my normal content, but it's because I'm actually doing this again. My husband and I are gonna travel the world for 1 year as digital nomads, so we're gonna be working abroad while we're seeing the world. I'm pretty adventurous, I like doing new things, and because we don't have kids yet, we decided this might be the right opportunity. And if you're not interested in this lifestyle, it's all good, but I wanted to talk about it because the freedom to live a life true to yourself is what really matters and why we build our wealth, build passive income, and improve our finances. And this journey of digital nomading and seeing the world, doing what I want to do, is kind of my version of that. So if you don't know already, basically a digital nomad is someone who can work location independently from the comforts of their laptops, and they're traveling the world if they want to. But being a digital nomad for a year versus backpacking the world for a year is extremely different. My solo trip around Europe back in 2014 was a huge contrast to my 1 year as a digital nomad. Because when you're backpacking around the world, you're probably staying in one location for a max of maybe 5 nights. You're moving around constantly, you're enjoying the sights as more of a tourist traveling. But as a digital nomad, you're living longer term in different locations, getting work done. So instead of working in the Bay Area where I was from, I was just working somewhere else. I'm not really escaping or enjoying a getaway. I'm making new places my new home. I'm also working on my businesses, but then experiencing the same feelings, thoughts, and issues as I normally would, but I'm also living in those different countries, learning different cultures, and getting a sense of people's perspectives from all over the world. The point is, it doesn't mean that you're constantly exploring. It really means that you're establishing your routine in different places with a sprinkle of travel whenever you please. So digital nomad life is awesome, but it's not exactly a vacation. So I learned a lot when I was doing this whole journey. A lot of it might sound cliche of the things I learned, but honestly, you might experience this too, where you might hear something, but you can only really understand those things if you experience it yourself. For me, some of the learnings were that I should stay constantly grateful and aware of my privilege. When I was in Europe and Asia, some people were making $600 to $1,000 a month, and that was the normal salary. That made me really appreciate where I was from in the United States. However, these same people were some of the happiest people I've ever met. They were enjoying life, being present in the moment, whereas it's pretty common when you're in the US, a lot of people are just trying to climb the corporate ladder, trying to be successful, and they're always kind of thinking about the future, trying to figure out their goals and stuff like that. Whereas a lot of these people were fully living their lives, and I had a lot to learn from that. It made me realize that no one way is the right way to live. Other things I realized is you should follow your gut, get out of your comfort zone if you want to grow, and you should look for opportunities everywhere worldwide and seize them. Another thing I realized is I like to surround myself with like-minded people and people who inspire me. So when I was digital nomading, I found my core group of digital nomad friends when I was in Bucharest, Romania. And if I didn't find that, I probably would have went home a lot earlier. It was very helpful to have people who understood where I was coming from and who was experiencing similar things as me. Another thing I realized was my needs were basically the same when I was traveling than when I was at home. So some people think that travel is kind of like escaping, but then when you're digital nomading, life is basically still life. For me, I needed to have a bit of a routine to keep myself sane. Like, I'm sure a lot of you guys can relate. I try to make sure I slept and woke up around the same time every day. I walked around all the time. I hit up cafes regularly, and I realized I needed friends because it can get lonely if you don't share connections beyond small talk. Like, I would make friends with locals, but then I still needed those nomad friends to understand what I was going through. Those connections are built over time, so I feel like when you nomad longer, it probably gets better as you meet more people doing the same thing as you. The more you know people in the space, the more you can be like, hey, are you in Korea? Okay, let's go meet over there. Other needs I had was I needed to have that solid work ethic. So aside from learning about myself, my goal was really to attain financial independence. So visiting cafes to crank out work really helped me, as it'd be extremely hard to get things done where I was staying. So I had to create schedules and lists to make sure I was on track for my goals. It's really easy to drop off and explore new places when you're in a new country, but if you have those entrepreneurial goals, you have to make sure you have self-control to meet them. Like I would meet digital nomads going to Chiang Mai with like $500 in their pocket, hoping that they would make it, but a lot of them would just squander their money because they weren't really focused on building something. So you have to stay on track even when you are abroad like that. And then I realized I needed a life outside the apartment. Like I'll get lazy when it comes to getting out of bed and doing things outside, but I realized that leaving my place and joining outside life made me a happier person. So the good thing is when you are digital nomading, it does make it easier because you have good public transportation, you can walk around a lot usually. So it motivated me to want to get up and walk around, especially in Europe because it's gorgeous out there. So I realized that back home or anywhere else, it is important to get out of the house. So a lot of people wonder, is nomad life really all it's cracked up to be? Basically, a lot of people I know will be like, oh, life as a nomad is amazing. And then other people will be like, it's really difficult, it's depressing, it's not what you'd expect it to be. But for me, nomading was really like a middle ground between the two. I would say a lot of people veer one way or the other to make like clickbait articles and clickbait videos. But honestly, it's kind of like a middle ground. So when you first start nomading, it's really amazing in the beginning. Like it felt surreal for about 2 to 3 months, but then afterwards I started getting used to it. The excitement was kind of going down, moving around became normalized, and nomading just gets harder because the excitement wanes as you adjust to that normal day-to-day life. Also, you're away from the comforts of your regular day job, your go-to foods, your friends from home, family, and things like that. And even if you didn't travel as a digital nomad, leaving your regular job to be a passive income financial freedom fighter is already really scary. And then when you stack on top of that the whole travel fear, that's a lot to handle. There's that fear of not being able to bring any of your online business ideas to fruition, and that can be really scary, and it will always come to mind. I guess this is only for those people who are starting their own things, whereas if you are working remotely, you might not have that fear. Then you go through that frequent change when you're moving around a lot, because a lot of people feel like when they're trying to make new friends and then they leave for the next month, you're not really building relationships. I didn't have a huge issue with this part because I was able to meet those digital nomad friends, but you may definitely encounter that if you don't make sure that you find that community. I would say the largest challenge of being a digital nomad is really always asking yourself, what is the right path to take? You face a lot of questions because you are by yourself a lot, so you have a lot of time to your thoughts. So for me, I was constantly thinking, what is home? What's my ideal life? What's the right path to take? Can I see myself settle down in the places I'm traveling to? Do I even want to settle down? Do I want kids? Who would be my ideal life partner? And then there was the fear of when I was traveling, I was scared that I would lose touch with my friends from home. That's a fear I still carry now because, I'm in Dallas, I moved from the Bay Area, and then I'm gonna be traveling for a year. So you have to constantly keep up with your friends. And then it's also like, if I go home, will I miss this life? So you end up asking a lot of questions. And I did ask a lot of those while I was at my full-time job, but I find that when you're nomading, you have so much more time to think about those questions. A lot of the friends I would talk to, we have those discussions all the time. They would have this extreme fear about their age and what path they wanted to take. On the bright side, like I mentioned, you are bound to face these questions no matter what in life. So it's kind of like expediting it for you. If you are considering becoming a digital nomad, I would say that it might be harder because you know what's out there, but not knowing what's out there, I would say is worse. Because if you didn't step into the challenge of living abroad, away from your comfort zone, you'd probably be faced with an even worse question of what if. And I remember that that's what drove me to take all these actions and take all these risks for my life, because I knew that if I stayed at my 9-to-5 and I never had the courage to quit, I would regret it for the rest of my life because I would never know what was on the other side. Another pro to digital nomading was that it actually led me to a lot of spiritual studies that I probably would have never come across if I didn't challenge myself. One of the concepts that I carry with me now is kind of realizing that when people have strong opinions on certain things and they're against certain things, you're kind of creating a feeling of right and wrong, like a clear black and white, when I realized that life isn't like that. Everyone grew up with their different like backgrounds, their different upbringings and different cultures. So we all have different perspectives on certain issues. So for each person, it might be right for them, but it might be wrong for someone else. So what I realized is when we have all these different opinions and we're saying you're right, I'm wrong, you are really creating division in the world. Whereas I want to be more open-minded, learning how everyone thinks. And when you take the time to really understand each other and not be so dismissive of different views, you end up creating more unity instead of division. And then the obvious pro of digital nomading is that I felt so much more free. It was so enjoyable to just be out there by myself. No one knew me, right? So I felt like I could just do things that I wanted to do without, worrying about other people's opinions. I'm the type to be okay with like eating by myself, like going to movies by myself. So the whole journey was really for me to live a life true to myself and not for other people. And I feel like digital nomading really lets you do that. So I listed a lot of different things that I went through when I was a digital nomad, but I know you guys probably want to know how much it all costs. So basically I tallied up 9 months of expenses and I actually ended up spending an average of $1,400 a month, which is pretty cheap. Rent in the Bay Area, like San Francisco, can be around $3,600 a month for a 1-bedroom place in San Francisco. So I was spending less than half, and that included flights, accommodations, shopping, food, entertainment, everything. So in reality, it was kind of financially savvy for me to do this while living life. I was building my businesses while seeing the world and learning so much. So there's a lot of pros to doing this. So ultimately, from everything I did, I realized that financial freedom and location independence, that wasn't the answer to my problems. And it's not the ultimate goal, it's a means to an end. You need to figure out who you are and what intentional life choices you want to make. What is your ideal life? So financial freedom is just like step one. You really have to figure out what fulfills you. And that was the ultimate takeaway with being a digital nomad. And I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I know I covered a lot of different feelings and thoughts that I had. I don't know if you guys have ever been a digital nomad, but let me know in the comments below if you have any questions about being a digital nomad or if you've already done it and you've had similar thoughts. If you guys like this episode, you'll probably like this one where I talk about online side hustles that you can try because you need to have online side hustles while you're abroad to make a living for yourself. And subscribe, hit the bell button to be notified of my latest videos, and I'll see you guys in the next one.